Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Evening came to the village like a soft bell. From the mountains, shadows slid down in gentle folds, and the rice fields received them without hurry. Along the narrow lanes, doorways opened as if remembering a promise, and hands set out small offerings with the reverence reserved for first words and final goodbyes. It was Obon Night. Somewhere, a child laughed, the thin, bright sound of wonder. Somewhere, an old man cleared his throat, arranging incense as if lining up thoughts for a story he had waited a year to tell. The air smelled of rain that never quite fell, of cedar smoke, of oranges sliced into moons. On low trays near each threshold, bowls of tea warmed the quiet. Slivers of ginger leaned like little sails against porcelain. And above all this, above lanterns and windows and whispering fields, the sky stood still, the color of ink washed once and left to dry. At the edge of the village, a stream threaded through reeds and stones. Here the first lanterns would be lit, small paper houses folded from patient hands, each one a room of light. Children had helped crease the corners, tongues peeking from their concentration, while grandmothers taught them where to place the candle, where to write a name. Names. Some were written carefully, strokes steady as breath. Some were traced from memory, their exactness wobbly, as if the hand were listening rather than drawing. A few had no letters at all, only a circle, only a flower, only a dot of gold. But each, in the quiet arithmetic of devotion, meant the same. Come home, come gently. On the bank the first spark caught. A lantern inhaled light and exhaled warmth. Its glow climbed the paper walls like dawn rehearsing itself. And then the small box of radiance took to water, surprised by how easily it became a moon. One lantern became two, two became six. The stream began to speak in reflections, and the village gathered to listen. Among them stood you. Your hands were clean from washing the stones outside your door. A strand of straw hung at your wrist, a reminder to walk slowly, to make room for visitors who had only the air for feet. In your pocket lay a folded slip of paper, the name written on it so familiar it felt like the shape of your ribs. You waited until the others had set their lights upon the current. Then you knelt, your knee pressing a small oval into the damp earth, and opened your lantern. Not to the candle, but to the night. On its side you had drawn a single line, the simplest path between 2 points, and beneath it a wave. Mukebi, someone whispered behind you. The beckoning fire. You touched the candle wick with a taper and, for a breath, nothing happened. Then the flame woke, shy, then certain, and the paper around it blossomed into gold. The stream sighed as you lowered the lantern to its surface. It bobbed, tested, accepted. Come home, you said, and the words felt both too small and exactly right. Across the fields, the shrine drum answered the night. Its rhythm was not fast, not slow, a heartbeat composed for walking. People began to gather in the square, and the Bon Odori dance unfurled like a ribbon of memory. Step, turn, clap, step, turn, clap. Children mimicked, giggling at their own precision. A woman in a kimono patterned with pine boughs watched her hands, as if they were telling a story her voice could not carry. The ancestors were arriving, not as shadows, not as chills. They came as quiet brightness, as the soft fullness that slips into rooms where laughter is gentle and bowls are never empty. Lantern light trembled on door frames as if bowing. You felt it, a presence at your shoulder. Not weight, not wind, but attention. The kind that listens with its whole life. "Welcome," you said without turning. "Welcome back." By the stream, the lanterns moved like a constellation set free from the sky, stars choosing to drift among reeds and stones. The water carried them around small islands of grass, past the place where herons often stood, beneath the leaning willow whose hair made curtains for fish. Every so often, a candle would falter and flare again, as if the departed had paused to look around, to remember the exact angle of this bend, the smell of this root, the taste of this air. On the bank, an elderly woman knelt with careful knees and set two small figures beside a wooden tray. A cucumber with 4 sticks for legs, an eggplant with 4 sticks for legs. A child beside her asked why. "So they travel quickly to us and slowly when they go," the woman said, smiling. "The horse for arrival, the ox for return." You watched them a long while, the green horse eager as new grass, the purple ox patient as evening. In your chest, something opened like a door that had never been locked, only waiting for the right hand. The incense you had lit outside your home had burned halfway down its slender path. You went to tend it, adding one more stick to the small choir of smoke. The curls rose and wove through the paper charms tied above the gate, then drifted into the lane and out toward the stream. Somewhere in that pale river of scent your name was a silent note, and the night seemed to hum it back to you. An old friend stood at your threshold. You bowed, they bowed. No words were needed. In Obon, language is only one of many ways to speak. Together you straighten the offerings. Rice, tea, slices of pear shaped like moons, salt for protection, water for rest. You placed a small stone by the bowl. A memory made weight so the wind would not move it. "Stay as long as you like," you whispered to the air between your friend's shoulders and your own. When the dance lulled and the stream carried its slow procession deeper into the dark, the village returned to its doorways and sat on low stools. Stories rose the way sparks rise from a fire too tender to be called flame. Someone told of the year the lanterns bunched together around a snag of reeds, and how the whole village waded in to free them, and how afterwards the stars seemed closer. Someone else spoke of a dream in which they had been taught the lost verse to a lullaby, and how in the morning the lost verse had stuck to their tongue like honey. Your friend listened from the threshold, and every so often you felt their agreement touch your sleeve like sunlight through leaves. The night grew deeper. Crickets revealed the size of the fields. A single dog barked once, remembering something whose outline had already faded. The stream went on carrying its careful moons. At last you rose, and the friend at your side rose too. Together you walked back to the water. A last lantern waited on the bank, the one you had saved for the final hour, the one with no name written on it at all. You placed it gently on the surface and watched it find its way between two stones. For those we never met, you said. For those who came early. For those who left late. Your friend's presence leaned closer, and for a breath your ribs felt like a doorway again. But this time the door opened outward, into the vast, kind dark. You let it. The lantern drifted away, taking with it the small, precise glow of everything you had not said and did not need to. Around the next bend, it disappeared, and you felt no loss, only a completion shaped like a bow. The lanterns drifted beyond the last bend of the stream, where the reeds grew tall enough to touch the sky's reflection. Each one carried its small flame like a heartbeat, a quiet rhythm that made the water shimmer with memory. The people of the village stood still for a while, watching. No one spoke. The dance had ended, yet the pattern of the steps seemed to remain in the air, a choreography of silence. You followed the curve of the river, bare feet brushing the cool grass. The night smelled of damp earth and the faint sweetness of pine smoke. Somewhere behind you, the shrine bell tolled once. Not for warning, not for prayer, but simply to remind the world it was listening. Ahead, the water widened. It moved slowly, as though unwilling to forget what it had seen. You knelt beside the stream. The lantern you had set afloat was a faint glow now, drifting toward the open field where the mist waited like folded silk. You thought of the name written inside, of the hand that once held yours, of laughter that still echoed in rooms that no longer needed doors. "May you find your way," you whispered, and in that whisper, the air seemed to lean closer, not to take the words, but to give them back. Further along the path, the old woman and her grandchild walked in silence. The child carried a paper fan painted with a single white crane, its wings stretched as if ready to lift away. Every few steps, the child waved it gently, as though cooling the air for invisible travelers. "Can they really see us?" the child asked. The woman smiled without looking away from the water. "They see what remembers them." The child thought about this for a long while. Then, softly, as if speaking to the stream, said, "Then I'll remember everyone." The path curved toward a grove of willows. Here, the ground was soft and uneven, carpeted with fallen leaves that glowed faintly in the lantern light. The trees whispered to one another, long threads of sound brushing across the dark. You passed beneath their drooping branches, and for a heartbeat you felt a change, as though the air had thickened, like the world had taken a deep breath and was holding it. 1,000 faint lights drifted between the trunks. Not fireflies, not sparks, but fragments of memory too light to rest. Each shimmered briefly, then faded, leaving behind a faint scent of rain. The stream had split in two here, creating a small island of stones and moss. On it stood a torii gate, half swallowed by the mist. It was old, its paint faded to the color of quiet clay, but its shape still carried the dignity of purpose, a passage for what does not belong to one world alone. You bowed once before crossing. The earth beneath your feet felt warmer, as though the soil itself remembered the steps of those who had walked this path before. Every footprint was a whisper, every whisper a song. Beyond the gate, the river merged with another. The lanterns gathered here, forming constellations upon the surface. Some bumped gently into one another, greeting softly before drifting apart again. It was said that this place where two rivers met was the threshold between the seen and the unseen. You sat at the edge, hands resting on your knees, eyes reflecting the dance of light. It was here that you first heard them. The voices were faint, like wind caught in a flute, like breath turning into memory. They did not speak in words, but you understood. Gratitude, tenderness, a longing that was not sorrow but grace. Each voice carried the rhythm of footsteps, moving farther into peace. You listened until the night itself seemed to breathe with them. At some unseen signal, the villagers began to light incense again. They placed small sticks in the earth near the water's edge, the smoke curling upward like soft bridges between now and then. One by one, they whispered names not to summon but to bless. The child with the fan bowed deeply, and the crane on its paper wings seemed to lift. For a moment, all light and sound moved together. Lanterns, incense, breath, reflection, until everything felt part of the same slow, luminous motion. You closed your eyes. In the darkness behind your lids, the lanterns became stars again. And somewhere, in the quiet space between heartbeats, you felt a hand. Not touching, not pulling, just existing beside you. It was enough. The rivers met again, wider now, slower. The lanterns drifted like thoughts half-remembered, their reflections trembling as if unsure which side was real. Beyond the mist, something shimmered. Not a structure of wood or stone, but of breath and memory. They called it the bridge between shadows. No one built it. No one could. It appeared only when the night remembered itself completely. A thin arch of light crossed the water, not bright, but gentle, like the gleam inside a closed eyelid. You stepped closer. The ground beneath your feet seemed to soften, becoming almost weightless. Behind you, the village had fallen away, its sounds fading until even the crickets forgot to sing. Ahead, only the quiet remained. You saw them, faint shapes moving along the bridge, each carrying a lantern of their own. Some lights were strong, some were fragile, fluttering as if a single sigh might scatter them. And yet they all kept moving, not toward anything, but away from everything that had already said goodbye. You followed, careful not to disturb the stillness. The bridge felt cool under your feet, though there was no surface to touch. Each step echoed without sound, like a memory walking through itself. At the center, the mist thickened. The figures slowed. You stopped among them. For a long moment you stood between worlds, your lantern in one hand, your heart in the other. Then you felt it, the quiet presence of someone beside you. Not seen but unmistakably there. The air changed temperature, warmer, then colder, the way water does when it carries a current from deep within the sea. "Do you remember?" a voice asked, but it was not spoken aloud. It bloomed directly in your chest, gentle and patient. "I'm trying," you whispered. The figure turned toward you. It had no face, only light. From that light, 1,000 moments unfolded. Laughter by the river, the smell of rain-soaked rice fields, the brush of a sleeve against your arm. Memories that didn't belong to the present but refused to be lost. "You waited," the voice said. Always, you answered. The light pulsed, like breath caught in the throat of the world. Then it extended a hand, not to hold yours, but to rest just beside it, close enough for warmth, far enough for respect. Together, you looked down at the water beneath the bridge. The reflection showed not two figures, but one divided by time, joined by memory. "Are you crossing?" you asked. "I already have," said the voice. "And so have you. We just forget the direction sometimes." You smiled, or maybe it was the light that smiled through you. The lantern in your hand brightened. The mist around you shimmered as if listening. The bridge began to hum, not music, but the sound of understanding. You realized the truth. There were no sides to cross, no boundaries to dissolve. Every goodbye was simply another way to meet again. You turned back. The light faded slowly, leaving a warmth that lingered even after the shadow had gone. The bridge still glowed faintly behind you, waiting for the next remembering. And when you stepped off it, your footprints were not left behind. They were carried forward, into every lantern, every reflection, every story told on Obon Night. The bridge dissolved behind you, fading like breath on glass. The air grew still, carrying the scent of ash and lotus. You found yourself standing on a wide, open shore, where water met mist and the mist met stars. Here the lanterns came to rest. Each one floated toward the shallows and paused, their flames leaning gently toward one another as if to speak. The light they gave was soft, wavering, more memory than fire. When the wind brushed across the water, the flames trembled, not in fear, but in recognition. This was where the souls gathered before returning to the unseen. The villagers called it Ko-no-hama, the shore of whispering flames. You walked among them slowly, your reflection rippling beside 1,000 others. Everywhere you looked, faces shimmered and vanished, reappearing in the glow of the lanterns. Some smiled, some bowed, some turned toward the stars as if remembering their names. And then one lantern drifted close to your feet. Its paper had torn slightly, revealing the candle within. A single flame flickering like a heartbeat in an open palm. You knelt and cupped your hands around it, protecting it from the wind. "Who do you belong to?" you asked softly. The flame tilted toward you. Then faintly it spoke, not in words, in warmth. It filled your chest with a familiar pulse, a rhythm that made your ribs ache in the most tender way. You knew that feeling. It was the same as every laugh you had once shared, every tear you had once wiped away. It was love, remembering itself. "I see you," you whispered. The flame steadied, and for a moment, the air shimmered. A figure appeared beside the light, outlined in gold. No features, only presence. It bowed and you bowed back. Around you, other lanterns began to stir. Their flames leaned toward one another, weaving soft trails of light through the mist. It looked like a conversation, or perhaps a song. The river hummed beneath it, low and kind. You could feel it now, the quiet gratitude of 1,000 souls saying goodbye without sorrow. Each flame that flickered out was not extinguished, only lifted. It rose into the sky, leaving behind a trail of warmth that shimmered like breath in winter. One by one they ascended, small suns returning to their source. and in their glow, the mist turned to gold. The figure beside you looked up. Its light grew faint, but its warmth remained. You understood what it meant. It was time to release. You lowered your hands. The lantern slipped free, drifting toward the horizon. It joined the others, its flame now a star among many. The sky opened like a great, dark flower. Lanterns became constellations. The constellations became whispers, and those whispers became the rhythm of the world breathing once again. "Thank you," you said, to no one and to everyone. The shore answered with silence, the kind that completes rather than empties. You stayed until the last light vanished, until even your shadow felt at peace. Then you turned from the water, your heart lighter than air, carrying the warmth of 1,000 goodbyes that no longer hurt. Night deepened, but the sky did not darken. It glowed softly, as though the stars were learning how to breathe. Where once there had been a river of water, now there was a river of light, flowing above the horizon, its current made of drifting souls. You stood beneath it, your shadow barely touching the ground. Every flame that had risen from the shore now shimmered across the heavens. Lanterns unmoored from gravity, becoming constellations that forgot they were ever bound to earth. The villagers lay in quiet reverence, heads bowed, eyes half closed. They did not speak, for words would have fallen too heavily through the silence. Instead, they listened to the slow hum of the river of golden sleep. The sound was not music. It was older, softer, like the pulse of the world remembering itself. You walked along the path by the riverbank, though you could no longer tell where water ended and sky began. Mist had become cloud, and cloud had become dream. Your lantern flickered in your hand, not from wind, but from the weight of realization. Every light above was once a life, every shimmer a heartbeat still echoing, and yet none of it felt distant. It was all near, so near that you could feel the warmth of it brushing your skin. A faint laughter drifted across the golden current. You turned and saw shapes, some small, some tall, all made of light. They waded through the air like children through shallow waves, leaving trails of radiance that folded gently behind them. One of them turned toward you, a figure wrapped in gold. It raised a hand and pointed to the lantern you held. Inside its paper walls, the flame pulsed as if alive, eager, listening. Then the figure spoke, or perhaps the light itself did. "Do you see it now?" You nodded. "Yes, everything that was still is." The figure's light brightened until it was almost transparent. Its shape dissolved, joining the current, becoming a thread in the fabric of the sky. For a moment you saw the pattern, an endless weave of light, flowing and folding and returning, never breaking. It was beautiful. It was kind. You knelt by the river, lowering your lantern until its glow touched the reflection of the sky. The two lights met, one from earth, one from heaven, and merged into a single gleam. When you lifted your hands, they were empty, but warm. The lantern drifted upward, crossing the invisible horizon. It became another star in the river, another promise that light, once given, is never lost. Around you, the wind carried the scent of cedar and smoke. The villagers began to hum a low, wordless tune, a melody that seemed to rise from the soil itself. It was not sorrowful. It was a song of gratitude, of letting go. You closed your eyes and breathed with it. Each inhale brought the weight of all that had been. Each exhale released it into the glow above. Soon the sky was filled with thousands of lights, not burning, not fading, but resting. The world itself seemed to pause in reverence. And then, slowly, the river began to drift farther into the distance, its brightness softening, its hum turning faint. It did not vanish. It only changed direction, flowing inward now, into the heart of everything that ever was. You whispered, "Good night." The word did not echo. It didn't need to. It joined the river and became light. The river had gone quiet. The sky no longer glowed, yet the air still shimmered with something unseen. A softness that lingered even after the last flame had drifted away. The village slept, doors half open, incense still curling like faint prayers. The earth itself seemed to hum with a slow, steady peace. You stood at the edge of the stream alone, though the word no longer meant what it used to. At your feet rested one final lantern, untouched, unlit, waiting. This paper was pale, its corners folded with care. No name was written upon it, no symbol, no mark. It was empty, and yet, in that emptiness, it felt full, as though it already carried every name ever spoken, every memory ever held. You knelt beside it. The water whispered against the stones, gentle and patient. Above, the first hint of dawn was beginning to gather. Not a color, but a thought of light. You held the small candle between your fingers. It was cold, but it knew what to do. When you struck the match, the flame that bloomed was quiet and golden, the same hue as the river of sleep that had crossed the sky. You placed it carefully inside the lantern. It breathed once, twice, then settled. For a long time you simply watched it. It did not flicker or waver. It waited. So did you. Then gently you set it upon the water. The current accepted it with a sigh. The paper walls caught the reflection of the dawn. Pale blue at first, then rose, then gold. The world seemed to lean closer, listening to its small, sure glow. You whispered, "For all that was, and all that will be." The lantern floated forward, its light neither fading nor growing, only becoming part of the river that no longer needed to be seen. You felt a warmth in your chest, faint at first, then steady. It spread through you, gentle as the first breath after a long silence. And then you understood you were the last lantern. Every light that had ever burned had passed through you. Every name that had ever been spoken now rested in your breath. You were both vessel and flame, memory and forgetting, holding and release. The sun began to rise. The mist thinned, revealing the quiet beauty of everything that remained. The reeds swaying, the stones shining with dew, the faint tracks of footsteps that ended and began in the same place. The lantern drifted toward the horizon. Its reflection reached across the water, and for a moment you could not tell whether the light came from the sky or the stream or from within yourself. Then, softly, the flame folded inward, not dying, not fading, but returning. A warmth brushed your cheek like a farewell that needed no words. You bowed to the water. The river bowed back. And somewhere above, the stars that had been souls blinked once, twice, and were gone, carrying with them the quiet assurance that nothing truly leaves. The world exhaled. The morning began. You turned toward the village, where smoke rose from breakfast fires and bells marked the hour of beginnings. You walked slowly, your steps light, your heart unburdened. The wind passed through the pines, and for a breath, it carried a whisper. Thank you for remembering. You smiled. Thank you for returning. The scent of incense lingered, the same as it had on the first night. And in its trail of smoke, you saw the faintest gleam of gold, the last trace of the lantern, the final note of its song. You closed your eyes. Everything was quiet. Everything was warm. Everything was whole. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth, the lantern of lost souls. The tale of Obon Night has come to its end. But every light that drifts away leaves behind a path for someone else to follow. Good night, traveler. Shooting star.